Only you are worthy, and only you are wonderful. For there's no one else like you. Anybody know him to be faithful? Come on, you can sing it. Who is faithful ever true? Good night, everyone, and welcome back to another of our Sunday night health brought to you by the Evesham Sda Church. We are back out here again another Sunday night, and we are going to be looking at some powerful information tonight. Eat away disease. We got quite a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to take my time and go through this thing. Right, so we're gonna have some fun with it and we are going to move forward with the presentation. Of course, before we begin, let us just bow our heads and start it off with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, I want to thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here tonight where we could jump into your help message and share this with all of the persons here tonight. We ask, Lord, that you may continue, Lord, to hold the internet, that you may continue to bless the ministry, so that we can reach persons with the right arm of the gospel. Thank you again in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So we are looking tonight at eat away diseases. And of course, we have some information to cover. We're going to take our time and we're going to build this thing out piece by piece. So let us just make sure that these slides are loaded, ready to go, so we can move smoothly into this presentation. Now, I know some persons are still asking for the link, so let me just take a minute or two and just send it out for them. Those persons who are still trying to get on. I got a message that someone was trying to get on, but they were not able to. So I'm just making sure that we create forward links, backup links, make sure that everybody have everything that they need so that we can have this thing running nice and have this thing running smoothly. So it looks like we are there now. And so we're going to take our time and we're going to build this thing. All right. So let's start it off right. Disclaimer, this webinar is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your routine. Now, tonight, I want to do it a little bit different. For the last few webinars, we've been doing a lot of teaching and showing you the information from the sources and kind of breaking it down. Tonight, I want to take a couple questions in between and more importantly, specific diseases. So the goal of tonight is to show you how you can reverse diseases by just your eating. And I'll show you exactly why we decided to do it this way. And so if you have any specific conditions, and it doesn't have to necessarily be just diseases, it could be things like wanting to lower your weight, etc. I'm going to show you exact meal guides, systems that you could actually use to get this done. So that being said, as we like to start with, we teach from 4 primary sources, the first being the Bible, the second, the inspired writings, and we're talking about the inspired writings of the messenger Ellen G. White. Third is good science, lines up with number 1 and 2. And then fourth, of course, being experience. We dealt extensively with this key text last week. And we're just going to read it here again, just for emphasis. Repetition is the key of learning. And it's taken from Exodus 15 and verse 26. It says, "And the Lord said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee." And we kind of went deep into this last week, so I know you guys have a very strong basis with which to build. Now, there are certain foundation principles that we like to build these webinars on, and the purpose that we repeat them is sometimes there are persons who are coming on here for the first. You may have heard it multiple times, but there are persons coming on here for the first, and to give them the benefit, to give them the advantage of having a strong foundation with which to launch off into, we love to repeat this. So foundation principle number 1 is The cause causeless shall not come. The cause causeless shall not come. If you want to use our other source, and next we have put in that is disease never comes without a cause. Disease never comes without a cause. Now, why is this important? Because you see, once we understand that every single disease that has been known to man, there is a cause to it, and we work intelligently to find that cause and address that cause, we have the confidence that once we align with God, then the healing can take place. So that brings us to the word that we've been talking quite a lot about, and that is disease. So, what is disease? Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. And we're going to take our time again and bring this thing down. Now, remember, tonight we are looking at multiple diseases, and our topic is eat away the disease. So, we understand that the disease came because there was a system broken, right? Violation of the laws of health. And so, the laws of health we know are pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. And this is a next representation of it. Now, sometimes as a teacher, as an educator, you always have to make sure that you pull different topics apart, and sometimes you have to go deep with it. And so the reason I wanted to make this one eat away the disease is that eating is something every person does. Exercise may be optional, rest may be spasmodic, but eating is something that everyone does. And in fact, over the last few months, what I'm about to teach you, I've been using it inside of the FitMa community. And I've been seeing incredible results by just making small changes. And by now, especially if you've been on here for quite a lot of our past webinars, you would have had a strong foundation. You would have understand the roles that hormones play. You would have understand the roles that each of these laws play. You would have had a basic understanding of how food works, how high blood pressure works, how diabetes works, etc. So with that strong foundation, we're going to pick one of the laws of health and we're going to dive deep into it. Now, this is not saying that the other laws of health are not important. What we are doing, we are just going to take our time and go deep into one of them. And because eating is the thing that is level, that's the level playing ground right here. Everyone eats, we're going to use that one to go from here. Now, in fact, when I do an assessment on a person that comes into the FITMA clinic, or let's call it the FITMA office, we normally look at the big tree. And the big tree is what we normally look at, especially if you're just doing a stand-up, meaning that the person came in and say, hey, this is the situation. I don't know why this is happening, and this is what has been going on. So obviously we can't do a full sit-down 45-minute consultation. So we normally hit the big tree. And typically, I would say 8 out of 10 times, the problem lies in one of these big three. Now, what are the big three? They are nutrition, exercise, and rest. So that would be proper diet, exercise, and rest. And the reason I put nutrition at the bottom is that nutrition normally, nutrition plays a very massive role in the person's results, right? Nutrition plays a very massive role there because I am sure we are all familiar with the term, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. So, literally, that means that the food that we eat becomes a part of our body. As a result, if we put good food in, the cells, the muscle tissues, the parts of our body will be built up in a proper manner. If we put less than ideal foods in, the parts of our body will be built up with less than ideal matter. Now, that being said, if a person comes to you or comes to us with some sort of an imbalance, whatever the manifestation of that is, once a person comes with you and you know that whatever it is, whether they're having blood issues, they're having hormonal issues, they're having stomach issues, they're having circulatory issues, that material inside is made up of the food they eat. And once you can clearly establish the link between what is coming in and what is happening, then you are going to realize that that nutrition plays a very, very crucial part in it, right? And as we go through the different diseases, you're going to see how this thing ties together. Now, there's also other part that would be to the top of the layer, and I'm just mentioning it here because it also is an extension of nutrition, and that will be in the category of supplements and herbs, right? So they are an extension of nutrition. Of course, this will be the clean up part of the nutrition after we have fixed the primary, but this also must be mentioned. And so supplements and herbs play a very crucial part inside of your nutrition healing program. Now, tonight, we're going to take our time and we're going to look at some of the different type of diseases by their category. So we have diseases of the circulatory nature. We call them the circulatory diseases. And these will be things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arteriosclerosis, coronary heart disease, heart attack, stroke, heart failure, aneurysm. All these deals with, or DVT, all these deals with circulatory problems. Now we have disease of the nervous system, things like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, epilepsy, MS. All these deal with diseases of the nervous system. Then we have the respiratory, we have the digestive, we have the endocrine, etc. And as you go along, you realize every system in the body has a disease associated with it. So if you want to break this down further, you could look at it like this. In St. Vincent, we have that the country. In this country is divided into parishes. In these parishes, we have towns. In these towns, some of them we have villages. And each village we have homes. And in each homes we have individuals. So every part of that system or every part of that country is made up of a smaller part. So the country, smaller part, parishes, smaller part, cities, smaller part, villages, smaller part, homes, smallest part, individuals in the homes. Now, that's exactly the same way your body works. So when somebody presents to you a certain disease, a certain condition, a certain imbalance, you have to first of all identify what system is being affected. So if somebody, and let's just kind of play a little bit tonight, put some questions in there. If somebody comes to you with a high blood pressure, what system is being affected? Is that the circulatory system? Is that the reproductive system? Or is that the respiratory system? Just put it in the chat for me. So if somebody comes here and they say, hey, I have high blood pressure. For the last 7 readings, for the whole week, my numbers have been extremely high. What system are you going to be looking at? Let me see it in the chat. I just want to make sure that we kind of understand the flow of things. And this is also going to help you as you begin to deal with your different conditions or persons in your home. You will know exactly how to look at this. And in a future lecture, we're going to break down these systems and kind of give you an understanding of it. That's correct. That deals with the circulatory system, right? And so we're going to start right there with the circulatory system. And when it comes to the circulatory system, the first thing you want to first of all identify is who are the key players, who are involved. Now, something must also be said. Sometimes, what did I say? Sometimes there would be a manifestation of a disease, a condition, a disturbance in a system. However, you would also address the system, yes, head on, but other times you also have to look at adjacent or complementing systems. Now, we're not going to get too complicated. For this exercise, we're going to keep it simple, but I just want to insert that in there to get your mind thinking. So as we build, as we move forward, you will see how this all connects together. So let us first of all deal with the circulatory system and the diseases that are there. So if you're dealing with the circulatory system, let us look at some of the diseases that are, let's look at some of the parts that are associated with the circulatory system. Now, every system has some sort of a driver, a motor, or a force in which items, chemicals, messages move through that system. Case in point, the circulatory system. What is responsible for moving blood around the circulatory system? What is responsible for moving blood around the circulatory system? Just put it in the chat for me. Right, that is correct. The heart. So the heart is the driving force of the circulatory system. Then it has to drive this blood through something, which of course will be the arteries, the veins, the capillaries, etc., etc. So now we have a basic working knowledge of the affected system. Once everything is in working condition, we should have no issues inside of this system. Now let's take a case like high blood pressure. Let's take a case like high blood pressure. In high blood pressure, it means that the numbers that are being registered as the pressure going against the arteries, the veins, is higher than normal. Question must be asked, what can cause these numbers to go up? And so we looked at this in our high blood pressure seminar or webinar, and we covered some of these factors. Now, quickly, let's just drop some of them in the chat. Let me just start off with one. Eating too much sodium. High consumption of sodium. Note I said sodium. That is one. The next one is high levels of stress. The next one is a diet that is high in saturated fat. The next one is clogged arteries. So now we are seeing the different causes. And sometimes what you're going to realize is that in certain diseases, it's not as straightforward, where it will just be one cause that will cause it. Sometimes it could be multiple causes. It could be things like taking drugs that can induce the blood pressure to go up high, as we're on the topic of blood pressure. And so we got to start looking at it. So now, if we look at our little chart here, we will realize that for the blood pressure to go high, it's registering higher than normal blood pressure. It means that either there is some sort of a blockage, there is not as much flexibility, meaning the veins are not flexing as they should, which again, because of the stiffened veins, the blood pressure will go up. So we are having an issue in here. So now, right off the bat, we know that when we work to address this problem, we have to do things that would cause the arteries, cause the veins to flex. We have to look at things that would unclog the arteries. We have to look at things that will strengthen the pump or the heart. And this is the part we're going to start working on, right? So now that we have that basic knowledge there, we have to, of course, do a quick recap of this topic that we covered a couple of times well. But we're going to do a quick recap for the benefit of those coming on here, perhaps for the first time. Now, this is something we like to call stop dieting, start eating. Now, let me just backtrack. We said that disease comes because there was a violation of the laws of health. We also cover the laws of health. Tonight, and moving forward, this is something I want you to pay attention to. Most of the persons that you will be working with, or even yourself, may not at the start be able to do all of these at one time. So this is what we normally recommend, and this is what I normally do with clients. Have a conversation with them and give them three options. Again, you could do the same thing I do, which is normally start with the big three: nutrition, exercise, rest. Hey, Susan, which of these? I know we talked about all 8 laws, yes, quite a lot, but right off the bat, which of these do you think will be the best for you right now? Which one do you think will be the strongest or the easiest for you to get started with right now? You think we could work with the nutrition? What about the exercise? You think that would be a better one to start with, or the sleep? Which one do you want us to work on? This is how I normally address the clients. And so the clients would say one of these. Now, go ahead and pull. The clients would say one of these. And so normally, for average persons, it is always nutrition or rest. These are one of the tools that they would, one of the two that they will normally pick to start with. Now, for this exercise, we're just going to start with the nutrition. Right? So this is the approach I want you to take. If you are dealing with a specific disease, the laws of health are there as your roadmap. When you go on a map, you pick a point to start from, and then you use that starting point to navigate to your destination, right? This is the exact same thing you're going to be doing when you are starting your reverse protocol. Tonight, we are doing it using eating. So we're going to be starting at the nutrition part. Make sense, everyone? Excellent. So once you have that start in place, Now we're going to get some fundamentals of nutrition. Now, the one thing I like to use is this EAT acronym. I find it a very easy one for most persons to remember. We always call it stop dieting, start eating. Now, just remember the EAT acronym. EAT. E stands for enjoy whole foods. Let's stick a pin there. Now, in the chat, when you hear the word whole food, you're going to put it in the chat now. Get ready. What comes to your mind? When you think whole food, what comes to your mind? You can give me the examples or you can give me a working definition. It doesn't matter. What comes to your mind when you hear the word whole food? Let me see it in the chat. So get in the chat and let's see what comes to your mind. If I say whole food, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Let me see in the chat. So we keep in the chat alive. Remember, you gotta keep your fingers close to the pedals. If you want to unmute yourself and say it as well, that could work as well. I won't stop that. Just so we can get the answers shooting in faster. Right? So what comes to your mind when you hear whole foods? Let's just make sure we all have a base knowledge. And if we don't, remember there's no wrong answers. We're gonna take our time and we're gonna unpack this thing. All right. So while you're still working on the answers, whole foods, this is the easiest way I like to explain it. The way that the Lord created food, whole foods. The way that man created food, processed foods. That's the easiest way to explain it. Right? Let me see answers. Unprocessed. Okay. Right, exactly. So when you think whole foods, you think natural foods. You think a better way to put it, real food, man-made food. Real food, artificial food. Now, that being said, give me some examples in the chat. You could say it out loud, you could type it in the chat of whole foods or real foods. Give me some examples of whole foods. Go ahead and put them in the chat. The chat is yours. Take it away. Right after this, I'm going to ask you for examples of unnatural foods. So just get yourself ready, right? So right now, just give me in the chat some examples of real foods. And remember, we say real foods, whole foods, foods that God created. Let us see in the chat some examples of real foods. Okay, fruits, lovely. Provisions, peas, beans, lovely. Why? Because if we go out in nature, these are things that we would find. We can find them in a natural state. You will find fruits, you will find provisions, you will find peas, you will find beans. And next we could check if these foods are real. Is if you take a seed from them and plant it in the ground, you should get a sprout, provided the conditions are okay. Right? So that is real food. Now, give me some examples of unreal food or artificial foods. Let us see it in the chat. Because this is a very crucial part in using nutrition to reverse disease. If you can't understand what foods you should be eating, then everything else hereafter will not make sense to you. All right? So we're taking our time, we're speeding along tonight, but we're gonna build this thing. Right. So unnatural foods will be things like sausage, peas, canned foods, etc. Lovely. If you go outside in nature, you will never see a sausage. We know what it is made up of from, but you will never see a sausage. You would see a steak, you would see a chicken, you would see eggs, but you will never see a sausage. Right? And this is, as we're on the topic, one of the problems I have with sausages in general, specifically sausages. Sausage, we are told, is created by grinding up the flesh and then packaging it into these, let's call them paper wraps, tying both ends, and that's where you get the shape of the sausage. Now, there are a couple things there. One, you do not know what part of the animal was grounded up. Some labels state it, but then again, everybody will state what needs to be stated to get the items passed. Number two, if you were to leave flesh outside the fridge for a day or two, it begins to rot. However, these sausages can stay packaged for months upon months and they do not spoil. What is causing that? It means that wrapped up into these little sausage packages are certain preservatives that keep them lasting longer. One of the popular ones is nitrites. Right. Nitrites are known to cause elevated high blood pressure levels. And next thing that is normally placed in there is high level of sodium, which is why Back in the olden days, before fridge, they used to put a lot of salt on the flesh and corn them. That's the word they used to use. Corn them. They used to corn fish and so forth to help to preserve it. Right? A lot of that was used to be used. They are also cancer causing. Lovely, well said. And all these are the problem with the chemicals and with the nitrites. So you don't know what part of the plant is, you don't know what part of the animal is going in. You also don't know what else is in there. You know that they are using preservatives that have been shown to cause cancer, that have been shown to raise blood pressure, and then you are just eating this week after week, month after month. Right? And wondering why your numbers are going high. Lovely. The same principle and argument applies to anything that can last more than a week, 2 weeks, a year's on a shelf without spoiling. It means that there are certain chemicals in there. Now, there are natural ways of preservation, one of which I just mentioned, which is corning. The other one is freezing. These are natural ways of preservation. There are also food preservation mechanisms that can be used. So like taking your jams and so forth and turning them into jellies, of course, using natural ingredients. These are ways you can naturally preserve food. Nothing is wrong with the food preservation. The method of preservation is what we have the issue with. Right, so now that we have a working definition of real food versus unreal food, that is the first part. Now I put a note in there and it says eat 80% whole foods. If you take 80% of 7 days in a week, that works out to about 5 days per week you should be eating whole foods. Why did I not put eat it for 7 days? Because we know things happen. Sometimes the schedule gets whacked or it goes out of the normal pattern, and so you have these days you have to leave some contingency. Of course, 100% would be the ideal, but we are working with real people with real situations in a real world, so we got to put real numbers, right? So 80%, 5 days of the week, you should be eating whole foods, real foods, foods that you can identify. And next thing that you can use to make sure that you understand these foods is just look at the back. And if you are seeing names in the ingredients that you can't pronounce, it probably should not go in your body. If you see names that you can identify and pronounce, then it can go in your body. So that is whole foods. Lovely. That is step number one. Now, you have gone through the trouble of finding the best whole foods with the goal of having that whole food become part of your body. Why? Because you are what you eat. The next step to ensure that that chain continues is to adjust the preparation. Now, when we say adjust preparation, there must be some sort of a method to prepare this food for you to enjoy it. So if you're talking about beans, we got to soak it, we got to boil it, we got to cook it, whatever the case is. That is a preparation. So the cooking, the boiling, the baking, the broiling, these are preparation methods. And so you use preparation methods that would keep the nutrients intact and make sure that when that food hits your body, it does not create more havoc. Let me give you some examples of perfect preparation methods. So some we just name: baking, boiling, broiling, air frying for those of you who love fried stuff, grilling with the modern gas grillers that they have. You want to avoid things like barbecuing. You want to avoid deep frying because these will change the way the food reacts in your body. So you can take a perfect lentil, process it by cooking it down, turn it into a lentil patty, and then taking that lentil patty and deep frying it into vegetable oil for a couple of minutes. And that lentil patty, which originally started out good because this deep fry, the deep fry now changes how the lentil reacts in your body. It adds extra layers of fat. And when this hits your arteries and hits your body, it causes inflammation and it causes the arteries to start closing in. Now, but the food was okay at the start, the preparation method is what messed it up. All right? So the preparation method, just stick with those ones. Stay away from deep frying, stay away from barbecuing. Right? If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat as you go along. I'll answer them as you go. The last part is to time it right. Eat the food when you need it the most. Now, if you have spent all of your day working, right, and you are now at 10 o'clock in the night getting ready to go to bed, the last thing you want is a full plate of lunch-sized food sitting in front of you. You will say, hey, but I didn't eat all this. When I eat it now, it should be utilized. Unfortunately, that's not how your body works. The body tends to work with the sun. The body tends to work with pattern. So when the sun goes down, Your body gets the signal, hey, it's time to sleep. Guess what happens when you start to sleep? When you work at the office and it's time to leave the office, do you see persons now starting to ramp up the work, or do you see persons packing up the desk, shutting down the computer, packing their drawer, getting their bags ready to leave the office? Well, that is exactly what happens in your body. When that certain hour reach, your body starts shutting things down, including your digestive organs. So when you put in that food at that hour of the night, number one, you have to wake back up the digestive organs to do work outside of its normal timing. One. Number two, because you go in and sleep, the demands for that food has drastically reduced. As such, what your body does is says, hey, I don't need all of this energy right now. I'm gonna put some up for later. Guess what put up in the body is called? Storing as fat. That's why your body put up food. It stores it as fat. Right? Last but not least, because your body was preparing to go to sleep from 10 to wake back up at 5, and now it has to work 3 to 4 hours overtime, depending on what you eat, it means your rest and recovery window just got smaller. So your time when your body should have been repairing your muscles, restoring your hormones, bringing back hormonal balance, keeping the cortisol levels right, keeping the insulin levels right, everything just went back into full overdrive. And now you end up in the morning hungrier, your blood sugar levels are higher, your sleep is poor, your blood pressure goes up, your cortisol goes up, and your body starts storing fat in weird places. Right? Keep in mind, this all started with proper food. The food was a whole food. But just these two down the line change everything. Now, now that we have that in place, let us start with circulatory disease. So let's pick the common one. One nation under pressure. So we look at high blood pressure. So we have high blood pressure. We know that high blood pressure primarily is found in our circulatory system. Right. We know that some of the cause of high blood pressure, it means that the meter blood pressure reading is reading higher than normal numbers against the vessels. For this vessel to read high readings, it means that the passages may be blocked, the heart may be a little bit weak in pumping, or the adrenals, which controls blood pressure, may not be functioning properly. So we're going to start right here. Now, if we are trying to clean out the arteries, would you consume foods that are high in saturated fat, that are high in cholesterol, and put those back in your body? Yes or no? In the chat, yes or no? You are trying to clean out the arteries. Would you consume foods that are high in saturated fat, high in trans fat, high in cholesterol, high in sodium? Obviously not. You're going to pull those foods out. So remember, we're talking now, eat away the disease. So we now have to look at our plate under the litmus test of eat. So we're making sure it is a whole food. Why it must be a whole food? Also, because whole foods are high in fiber. Fiber is your friend, especially if you have high blood pressure. What fiber does? It binds excess cholesterol and it takes it safely out of the body. So we want our arteries to get a good scrub. We want all of the excess cholesterol to be removed. So we're going to eat foods that will bind excess cholesterol, take them safely out of the body. We also said that we do not want to put things back in that will aggravate the problem. If your house is on fire, don't go and out it with gasoline. You will out it with water. Water will tend to put out the fire. So we are going to put out the fire with the foods we eat. So the first thing we want to do is ramp up fiber foods. Guess what foods contain fiber? If you guess plant foods, you are 100% correct. Guess which foods has zero fiber in them? If you guess animal foods, you are 100% correct. So you already see where I'm going with this. So if you have high blood pressure, and you know fiber is your friend, and the only place you can find fiber is in plant foods, then step number one is ramp the plant foods. Step number two is reduce or eliminate animal foods. That will do two things. One, it will prevent your body from getting excess fat, specifically excess cholesterol? In fact, let me ask this question before I actually state this. Do you know which organ in the body makes cholesterol? Do you know? Put it in the chat. Which organ in the body makes cholesterol? The majority of cholesterol in your body comes from which organ? Right. Let us see who has been paying attention for these last few months. Questions on the floor. Which organ in your body is responsible for making cholesterol? Question on the floor. Let me see. I'm going to take a quick pause here because I really need to ensure that you know exactly which organ, especially if you're dealing with high cholesterol, especially if you're dealing with high blood pressure. If you're dealing with any sort of circulatory issues, you must know which organ produces cholesterol. All right, it seems like we have no takers. So I'm going to work with you. I'm on your side. I'm going to work with you. The liver is the organ in your body responsible for producing cholesterol. Right. Now, that being said, if you have more cholesterol in your body than you need to be healthy, it means two things. One, the liver is overproducing cholesterol. Actually means three things. Two, the body is not doing a good job of removing excess cholesterol. Or three, your supplemental sources of cholesterol are high. Okay, let's start with number one. The liver is doing a poor job of manufacturing sufficient cholesterol. It's overworking. It's creating more cholesterol than normal. Most cases, guys, that is highly unlikely. Right? Your liver does, if it's anything, your liver will probably underproduce, but your liver hardly ever overproduces cholesterol. So we could rule out the liver. But let us be safe. This is about eat away your diseases. What are some foods, or what is one practice we can use to regulate, to cleanse the liver, to make sure the cholesterol making machine is doing its thing? Let me see it in the chat. We talk about it at the start of every protocol. Now I'm going to assume for the benefit of this is a brand new people, because I'm not liking the answers I'm getting so far, so I'm going to give you another shot to escapade yourself. What do we normally tell you to start your day with? We are talking about eating away your diseases. In this case, drinking away diseases. Can I give you a hint there? Let me see if there's any answers. Okay, we have no takers. Don't worry, I'm going to work with you. We normally say start the day with a glass of warm water and a tablespoon or two of lemon. Do you know why we do that? Lemon juice helps to detoxify the liver. By detoxifying the liver, you also help the liver to start functioning properly. The reason you clean your engine, clean your oil filter, clean your fuel filter from time to time, because if it is not clean, it will be clogged and the entire system will perform less than ideal. So when we say drink warm water with lemon juice, we are basically telling you every day give your system, your liver a reboot. So we're dealing with high cholesterol. So we have worked on that and our system is removed. Cholesterol is still high. What is the next problem? The body is doing a poor job of removing excess cholesterol. Now you're going to realize that high cholesterol, high blood pressure, circulatory issues all kind of tie in each other, right? So the same step by step I'm giving you works for all of this. So we fix the liver, cholesterol is still high. We said the next one means that the body is not doing a good job at removing excess cholesterol. In the chat, what did we say helps to remove excess cholesterol from the body? Put it in the chat. What did we say helps to remove excess cholesterol from the body? No, man, my team is asleep tonight. I'm not getting the answers in the chat. What is going on, my people? Come, let me call some names. Gotta make sure you guys there. Charmaine, Charlene, Sheridan, Living Streams, Roxanne John, Sharon Horn, Charlene. Come on, let's go, let's go. All right, living streams got it. Fiber. Okay. So if the liver is cleansed, and we said that fiber helps remove excess cholesterol in the body, and we realizing that we have to go to step two, which is remove excess cholesterol, we're now going to bump up the fiber, which means we are going to eat more whole foods. Right off the bat, the highest sources of fiber is going to be your legumes, so your peas, your beans, right? Lentils very high in fiber, soybeans very high in fiber. Most of the peas and beans are very high in fiber. All right. So that's going to be step number two. Now, this same protocol works for high blood pressure. It works for circulatory issues. It works for high cholesterol. So pay attention if you have any of these. Not just add the fiber, but take away the fiber, stripping the cholesterol added foods like meat. So we said, let me just go back to this now. We said that the liver produces cholesterol. The third step is that first step is that the body's liver, the liver is not doing its function properly. So we cleanse the liver. The second function is that the body is not removing excess cholesterol. We add fiber. The fiber is still high. The third option means that there is supplemental sources of cholesterol. So anything that has a liver, comes from a mother, would put cholesterol in your body. Give me some examples. Meat, chicken, fish, eggs, beef, steak, lamb, mutton. I know I called some of these two times. These are the sources of cholesterol. So if you did the first two steps and you still have high cholesterol, it means that the supplemental, meaning the cholesterol is coming from outside of your body, is causing the top number to go up. I will just insert this as well. If you have low vitamin D levels, you would have cholesterol problems. Why? Because vitamin D is used in the breaking down of cholesterol. So by vitamin D hits the skin then goes to pre-vitamin D, which is worked in the liver and the kidneys, and that also helps with the metabolization or management creation of cholesterol. Right. So just a side note there, make sure that you get enough sun. Okay? Right. So we cook it with gas. So that is how we would fix that problem if we have a high cholesterol problem. Now, let us go to high blood pressure. Exact same approach. We know high blood pressure comes because there is too much sodium, not salt, sodium in the diet. We also know that there are certain foods, chemicals like nitrates, that can cause the blood pressure to go high. We also know, and we're just going from the foods point now, that if we don't have enough fiber in our bodies, then our arteries will start to get clogged up because the excess is not being pulled out. Mhm. We also know that there is something called nitric oxide, your friend. It is what they try to mimic in the drugs. Now, what nitric oxide does, this is your blood vessels. When nitric oxide is released, it causes the blood vessels to dilate and open. And that will automatically bring on your blood pressure. That's what the drugs seek to do. However, the Lord already know that we're going to need this. So he put it in certain foods. Guess which one has them? Peas and beans. Very powerful sources of nitric oxide. Beet as well also has it. And what these help to do is to relax your blood pressure. You relax your blood vessels. So if you have a blood pressure problem, your foods to go up. And this would be if you are chronically suffering hypertension. You are trying the drugs not working, or you need to live on the drugs to just maintain a normal blood pressure. Then this would be my approach. We are eating. We're not talking about the other laws of health. We focus on the eating. The first and most powerful thing you could do, and this is something I'll tell you because I've seen it firsthand, is to eliminate or drastically reduce your consumption of animal products. So we are talking flesh items, milk, egg, cheese, butter. Now, of course, they have plant-based milk, they have plant-based butter, they have plant-based cheese, so you can just make the switch over. If you love that, just switch over there, right? But if you're suffering chronic high blood pressure, making this switch alone will drastically bring down your numbers. That's step number one. Step number two, just like cholesterol, we're going right back again. We're eating. Bring up your fiber, whole foods. Side benefit of eating high fiber foods would also be you'll be getting your nitric oxide, which would cause your blood vessels to relax. You see how all of this coming together? And then, of course, let's go to this formula. When you eat these whole foods, make sure that you prepare them in a way that will not further increase your blood pressure. So deep frying, you will stay away from that because that will further, even if you're eating plant-based foods and you deep frying it, you would still have the problem of high blood pressure. Make sense, everyone? Right. So we cook it with gas. So that is high blood pressure. Now that we have covered that, then this is where you could now add in the supplements. And I wouldn't even talk too much about the supplements because I want to show you guys how just the eating alone could fix this for you. Right? Now let's get to some practical examples. Let's get to some practical examples. So we are working with a client. This client has high cholesterol. This client has high blood pressure. This client has poor circulation. They have cold feet. They have occasional swelling in the feet. Having some issues here. The system that is being affected, the circulatory system. The parts of that system are our vessels and our heart. So the foods we eat must complement the vessels and complement the heart. We already talked about fibers, clean the vessels out. We talk about beans, opens the blood vessels so that they can dilate. And then we're going to look at certain foods, for example, those foods we're talking about, again, the beans, the greens. These would give things that would help the heart to function properly. Let's look at the plate. Now, this one I want you guys to pay attention to because this method I'm going to give you works for diabetics, works for persons with too much extra blessing, works for persons with high blood pressure, works for persons with hormonal imbalance. So this is a one-shot plate here. Pay attention to it. Right, let me see how we're doing for time, by the way. I'm really working my best to try and finish by 8:30. Okay. We're looking good for time. We're looking good for time. Now, this is where I want you guys to start to pay some attention here. What happened to my screen here? Let's see. Okie dokie. Right. Let us just get that screen back up. I don't think you guys are seeing my screen. Right. There we go. Lovely. So I know you're seeing it now. We're cooking with gas. This is what we like to call the perfect plate. Now, here is some of the key things with the perfect plate. With the perfect plate, we are going to take whatever plate you eat. Your plate size, we're not too concerned about the plate size. Call them empty. Checking it back here. You're not too concerned about the plate size, right? We're not too concerned about the plate size. We're going to work with the plate. I'm going to talk first about the contents, and then I'm going to talk about the frequency. Yeah, just go. We're going to talk about the contents, and we're going to talk about the frequency. Both of them are important. The frequency specifically if you're dealing with PCOS, or PMOS as the name has changed, and diabetes, right? Half of your plate. How much did I say? Half of your plate. Right. Now, guys, if you miss anything else tonight, don't miss this. If you don't implement anything else tonight, implement this. This, I'm telling you, I've seen amazing results with this. Half of your plate should be filled with fruits, keyword, or vegetables. Coach, I don't have a lot of vegetables. That's why I said or vegetables, right? Half of your plate. So the most amount of things on your plate should be fruits or vegetables. Now, I know some folks are going to tell me, I don't eat vegetables, I don't tolerate vegetables, right? Fine. We'll work with fruits. What are fruits? Let's define them. We're working tonight. We're taking our time. We have 10 minutes to 8:30. Come on, Coach, so you could finish this thing. We have 10 minutes to go. Fruits are foods with seeds inside. Examples, the obvious, mango, guava, apples. But coach, I thought those were high in sugar. They are, but they're also high in fiber, which is why Lord put them in there. Perfect. We don't have them in my country. Excellent. No worries. There are other fruits. The not so common ones that you probably didn't know. Not potato, sorry. Pumpkin, squash, eggplant, cucumbers. All these are fruits. So pumpkin is a fruit where it has a seed inside. Squash, same thing. Eggplant, same thing. All these are fruits. So you could do your baigan, I think Trinidadians call it. Right, you could do a curry baigan, half of the plate. Cheap, easy to afford. Let me see here. Let me see it. Tomatoes, right? Tomatoes. What did Trinidad call this one? Tomato choker. So off your plate could be tomato choker. I'm gonna call all the cultural foods here in St. Vincent. I know we have a ton of fruits. So we will use our fruits over here. So we could do our pumpkin as well. We could do our steamed pumpkin, curry pumpkin, however you want to do that pumpkin. Half your plate will do that. If you're a fruit person, you could do some curry pumpkin, or you could do some steamed pumpkin, and you could also have your fruits, your apples, your grapes, your bananas, which we have indigenous here. Right now, mango in season. Eat the mango with the skin, or at least make sure and eat the mango. Don't juice it down. Eat it like that, so you get the fiber. That could be on your plate. That's half your plate. Lovely. We're cooking with gas. Now, we have another side of the plate. So half the plate is already completed. The other half is empty. That side over there, we're going to split it into equal parts. So much should I say? Equal parts. That's why I put a 1-to-1 ratio. So whatever is in the top part, the same quantity must be in the bottom part. Notice we're not weighing foods. We're not doing anything. We're just doing a portion of the foods. Protein. That's the next one we're going to touch. Now, I've personally tested this. You can do me a favor if you want, and I'll do it at the end. Whatever your protein source is, now if you're dealing with high blood pressure, right off the bat, this have to be mainly plant-based protein sources. The odd times that you take meat, make sure at least you're prepared properly. So don't bring fried meat, deep fried meat, barbecue meat, get that out the story. Out the story, one time, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, throw them their way one time, same time. So if you're going to be working with that until you get yourself down to plant-based, make sure it is boiled, baked, broiled, air fried. If you have high cholesterol, if you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, do this for me as well. Whatever plant, whatever protein you have there, even if it's animal, add some plant to it. So if you have your baked chicken, baked fish, whatever the case is, make sure you have some beans to go there with it. Why? Because the beans have the fiber that the meat does not have. So you're going to get the effect of the beans going in right behind the fiber, with the fiber right behind the meat, and pulling the excess cholesterol one time. We're not waiting for it to build up. We're pulling it one time and taking it out. One time, same time. Right? Lovely. Lovely, 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 lovely. Now, what did I say this side was? Same amount of protein, same amount of carbs. So your smart carbs, we here in St. Vincent. Ground provision, oats, cornmeal. I'm giving you cheap ones right now. This is the ones that's used personally. So cornmeal porridge coming in there. Obviously, we don't need cornmeal porridge with vegetables, but you know what I mean. It could be corn cuckoo, right? What else could we put there? So we have ground provision, whole grain bread, granola, toast. These are options of carbs. That is the setup right there. Now, there is a sequence as well. You want to consume this part of your plate first. That is the fruits or vegetables. This part going down first. The second part is going to be a protein. The last part is going to be your carbohydrates. Why do I say eat it that way? Note, what does vegetables and fruits have in them? Apart from the micronutrients, multivitamins, and multiminerals, they also have fiber. So when you eat this, and you bring in anything else, fiber is already in your system waiting. It helps to balance blood sugar. The next you're going to eat is protein. Protein is what is needed to rebuild your muscles, rebuild your immune system. All your cells use protein. It also helps you to feel fuller longer, so it increases satiety. So if you find you want to eat every 3 hours, just simply bump up your protein, and that will fix that problem. And then last but not least, you eat your carbohydrates. Now, typical Sunday lunch. We have some fried rice here. We have macaroni pie. We have a little bit of vegetables. We have coleslaw. We have a little piece of chicken. What is the problem with that? We always want to maintain, let me zoom it in here, a 1-to-1 ratio. So whatever carbohydrates you have here should be the same amount of protein you have. It will do the effect of buffering it for you. It will buffer the carbohydrates, and it will also cause your blood sugars not to spike. Right? So if you look at here, balanced plate, this is not balanced. This has a whole half plate of rice and a little piece of protein. This is more balanced, half vegetables, the same amount of protein, the same amount of carbohydrates. Now, give me some help here. We're gonna build a breakfast. I want you guys to just drop from me some breakfast foods in here. I'm gonna build a breakfast, I'm gonna build a lunch, and I'm gonna build a dinner following this pattern. Because yes, you understand the concept, but you need to know how could you apply it into your life. Right. So let me answer Charlene while you're dropping the foods for me. We're working on breakfast, right? So give me breakfast options. What protein can vegetarians use? Peas, beans. Now let me give you one, right? If you do not have any sort of estrogen dominant or estrogen related diseases, add soya beans. Soya beans, like actually raw soya beans or edamame. Soybeans has one of the highest levels of protein for any plant food. I think 1 cup of soybeans is close to like 20 something grams of protein, right? Soybeans. Let me see what else can I put this. I put peas, put beans, put soybeans, just for that specify that. You could also do, now this is, I'm giving you the cheap ones first. Now these are gonna be the semi-processed ones. Tofu, right? Um, plant-based, I'm typing them out for it. Plant-based meats, not my preferred option. And then this is one I like as well. Vegan protein powder. But the vegan protein powder, you could take that and you could make multiple things. So for example, let's say Charlene, you're a pancake lover. When you mix that flour portion for the pancakes, you could take a scoop or two of protein powder and mix it in there. A scoop of protein powder plant-based is anywhere from 20 to 25 grams. So you put that right in there, you mix it up. So when you make your pancakes, you already have the protein and the carbs and everything added in there. Right? Lovely. Does that answer your question, Charlene? So now let me just take this a step further. So from the peas and beans, you could then now make things like beans, or let's just call it peas, patties, peas, burgers, peas, soup. And if you take an emulsion blender, it makes it even more smooth. Let me see what else could we make there. Right? We talk about the tofu, so you could take tofu and make scrambled tofu that tastes the same like scrambled eggs. So scrambled tofu. And this is a very cheap option for you guys. This is what I personally do. I take the soybeans, trust me, it tastes good. And you will turn it into a smoothie. So you can actually blend it up. I find banana buffers the taste of any sort of abnormal food for you. Banana tends to buffer the taste. So you could take the soybeans, you can make a um, smoothie shake. This shake would have about 30 grams of protein if you put 1 cup of soybeans. So it'll be 1 cup of soybeans. I'm giving you options now, right? 1 cup of soybeans. If you want to make it a complete breakfast, this is what I would do. 1 cup of soybeans. You could also use black beans. Black beans also have that smooth taste. I find soybeans and black beans tend to have a smoother taste. I never done it with lentils. I probably wouldn't. But soybeans and black beans tend to have a smooth taste. So it would be 1 cup of soybeans, 1 cup of beans. These are good questions. I would put a half cup. If I'm losing weight, I would do a half cup of granola or baked oats. If I'm not losing weight, I'll do a full cup. For the sweetener, I'll put 1 banana. If you have vanilla, you could put vanilla extract there as well if you want the extra taste. Or you could use, what is that called? Carob. Carob powder will give it a chocolate taste if you like chocolate, if you like the taste of chocolate. Right? You could also use cinnamon powder. These are just condiments for you to adjust the taste. And then you would add 1 cup of water or 1 cup of plant-based milk. This will give you anywhere from 30 to 35 grams of protein in your first meal. So it's right there in the chat. Right? So that's actually I was asking you guys for breakfast. You could put dates as well. You could use dates for sweetening as well. Right? Right. So you guys could try it in here. So that would be a breakfast option. So now, if I was doing another breakfast option, let's say this is the shake work well if you're rushing out of the house, if you're busy. But if you have time to actually make food, then I could do something like this. So I would have two. Let me start with the vegetables. So we'd have lettuce, a lettuce salad, or you could do cabbage, whatever you want in there, whatever salad you want to make. It has to be plant. That is a vegetable base, right? If you are doing fruit based, then you could use tomatoes, you could use cucumbers, you could use raw fruit, Or if you want to do cooked fruit, you could do your steamed pumpkin or baigan. Hope I spelled that right. That's really eggplant. So that's half your plate. Now we gotta get something for the protein. So the protein could be bean burgers for my plant-based persons, especially if you're doing high blood pressure, dealing with that. It could also be baked beans. That's a typical breakfast meal. It could also be scrambled tofu. And if you don't have that, then you know now we'll go for the hard-boiled eggs. This is the persons who not fully plant-based, hard-boiled eggs, typically 2 to 3. Let's see. Boiled fish, air fried fish. I'm giving you all the proteins here. So that completes our protein sources. What I'll do in the chat as well, I think you guys can see this. Let me just put it here. So this will be veggies or fruits. Now remember this works if you are dealing with diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, stick as close as possible to the plant-based, okay? Definitely eliminate the meats. All right, so that is that. And then for our carbs, let's put smart carbs. We will use a whole grain sliced bread. I see somebody put wraps there. We could do a whole grain wrap. And we could wrap that whole thing together, make it into a wrap.
So if you like to tangle up its tongue and eat.
Yeah, that's it. That's a breakfast right there. That's a breakfast right there for you. Lovely, lovely. So again, remember this main thing. If you deal with high blood pressure, if you deal with diabetes, if you're dealing with high cholesterol, any sort of circulation issues, definitely reduce your flesh items and bring up your peas and beans. Choose the ones that you like. Let me put this in there. If when you eat peas and beans, you're getting a lot of bloating and gas, it means that your gut is off. Simple fix. Buy a very high quality digestive enzyme and probiotics. I keep it on them. And probiotics, use those before meals, and that will take care of the gas. Right? And next thing you can do as well is make sure and soak the beans overnight, and that would also help it as well. All right? Lovely. Now we talked about the type of foods. By the way, any questions there? You can unmute yourself just so I can answer you faster. Or you could type it in. Any questions with the breakfast? Everybody understand how to put together a healthy breakfast based on this plate for the disease. Any questions there? Let me see if there's any hands raised. Okay, lovely. Sister Sharon, you got it? Lovely. Now, lunch, pretty straightforward. Lunch will look something like this. Whatever your greens are. Now, keep in mind, callaloo would also be consistent in these greens, eh? So if you're a callaloo person, you can do callaloo as well. You could do spinach, whatever vegetable you want to roll with. So that could also be in this section. Your protein will be your beans, or if you're having non-vegan sauces, you put that there. But also, anytime you eat non-vegan sauces, add peas or beans to it for the protection.
Yes.
Your smart carbs, ground provisions. You can use your whole grain rices. You could use corn cuckoo. I'm giving you the Vincentian ones. You could use whole grain soda roti, right? If you want to go that soda roti direction. What else people use for lunch? Wraps. The wraps will come back in there. And yep, that's about it. And then for dinner, then it will be the main thing with dinner though is especially if your weight loss is your goal, then what you would do, you would reduce significantly the carbohydrates. If weight loss is your goal, stick with the proteins and the vegetables, right? You can reduce the carbohydrates. Now, that is the amount of food you should be eating. Now, let me tell you in terms of the frequency. Most of us here have heard about intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. If you are dealing with anything that deals with high blood sugar, specifically PMOS or PCOS, you may want to consider doing intermittent fasting. Why? Because PCOS is a primarily issue of the insulin in your body being too high, not the blood sugar. Insulin, and I know this is sometimes confusing. Your body is producing more insulin than normal. As a result, the male hormones in a female goes up. And so you end up with something like PMOS. To balance insulin, what works best is intermittent fasting, regulating the eating window. If you don't know what intermittent fasting is, here's a simple protocol. You want to make sure that you are resting your stomach for anywhere from 14 to 16 hours a day. So that would look something like this. Your last meal will be something like 6 p.m. Your first meal will be 10 a.m. Your first, then you have a second, and if you're having a third meal, but by 6 p.m., so from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day, that is a eating window. Outside of that, you don't eat any solid foods. What can you eat? You can use water, unsweetened tea, so you can use bush tea without milk and sugar. Um, yeah, that's about it. That's about it. That's all you could eat in the fasted window. That works well for persons with PMOS. Now, if you're diabetic, you will want to follow this pattern. And specifically for my diabetics, you want to make sure you follow this to a T, meaning that you have a lot of veggies. In the diabetic case, I would focus more on keeping the plate mostly veggies as opposed to fruits, especially fruits like bananas and those that tend to be high in spike, high spike for the sugars, right? Now, if you notice, I'm just making slight alterations because the person have a disease. If the person did not have a condition, then they could use this perfectly fine. But because the body is out of balance, for a temporary period of time, we'll just try and restore the balance. So for diabetics, you will stick mostly with the vegetables. Yes, you can have your fruits, but stick with things like baigan, stick with things like squash, pumpkin, apples, berries. These tend to be lower in the glycemic index. You want to steer from the bananas, the mangoes, etc. Those tend to be higher in the glycemic index until the disease has reversed itself. Then it could go back to normal. Next, you want to make sure you get enough fair amount of protein. For some diabetics, I would even have this ratio be more of 1.5 to 1. So a little bit more proteins than carbs. Now, these two things will help to balance out your blood sugar. And then the third thing you want to do, this applies to everyone, but specifically diabetics, you do not want to be eating every 2 to 3 hours. So you want to be eating at set times. So if you're eating at 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 5 p.m., stick with that as much as possible. That will give the body signals so it will start regulating the spikes properly. The more frequently you eat, the more your blood sugar keeps spiking, and the worse your disease will get. Right? Tonight, I'm not talking about the herbs to use because I want you guys to focus mostly on the eating. Lovely? So we cover the circulatory issues and we cover the diabetic issues. The diabetic protocols also work for weight loss. This here also works for weight loss. Lovely. Any questions? I want to make sure I covered everything and at least you have a basic knowledge of how to use your plate to reverse the disease. Eat away diseases. Now, I'm going to look at other diseases in the future, but I just want to touch on these two right here. So, any questions on this specific topic, or do you have a specific condition you would like me to talk about how you would eat for that? Let me just wrap it up here. As I said, I'm going to do my best to finish early-ish tonight. Right. So is the information clear? If the information is clear, give me a one in the chat. Let me just make sure at least before we close off, the information was clear and everybody understand. Have something they can work with moving forward. Is the information clear? Or was the information clear? So Charlene, Sheridan, Charmaine, Carol, SB, Mavis. Was the information clear? So you gotta give me a one in the chat. If I don't see enough ones, I mean information was clear. We'd have to do it again. Janine, living streams. Was the information clear? Okay, perfect. Lovely, lovely. So we'll look at other diseases as we go on to the rest of the weeks. Um, Maybe next week we'll pick a next one, and then we'll use the same plate remedy in terms of reversing it. Now, there is also a herbal protocol, but the reason I'm not putting it here tonight, because I first of all want to make it simple for you, and I want you to work with what you have. All of you here eating every day. So we eating every day. Let's just adjust the eating to change the condition and to hopefully reverse the disease that we are dealing with, or for the person that we are taking care of. Now, I'll also show you the ones for hormonal balance, specific ones like PMOS, fibroids. I'll deal with them as we go week by week. All right? Lovely. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mavis. So as we wrap it up here, let's just bow our heads for a word of prayer. I think this is a record. We finished by 8:41. That is definitely a record. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer, and then we'll be out of here. Dear loving and kind Father in heaven, we want to thank you for the privilege of being here tonight. We want to thank you for making the information clear and bringing it in such a way, Lord, that we can apply it in whatever country we're at, whatever foods we have available. We ask that you may continue to bless everyone on here tonight. And we ask, Lord, as they go into the week, that you may grant them the wisdom and the resources to implement this so that whatever conditions they're dealing with or persons that they're helping, it will be reversed in Jesus' name. We thank you for this ministry and we ask that you continue, Lord, to bless it as we reach more people with your help message. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, everyone, have yourselves a blessed night. Next week, we're going to pick another disease and we're going to use the same plate method to reverse it. What I'll try to do this time, because I was a little bit late on sending out the emails and the messages, as you guys realize, so I know you didn't get enough time to share it out. I'll try to have it out by Wednesday so that you can share it out with all of your different communities, different groups. And for those of you joining us for the first time, all we ask that you do is just share the Zoom link with at least 3 persons that they can also come in and benefit from it. Have yourselves a blessed night. Again, thanks on behalf of the Evesham Sda Church under the leadership of Elder Max Horn. And we thank you all for being here. Have yourselves a blessed one. The recording will be available on the Evesham Sda YouTube channel, so you can always go back and look at it there.